What's it, what day, what's our next? That's when we're gonna do, so I'll just make a quick statement. February 6th is the next Monday. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the City of Binghamton City Council Work Session, Monday, January 23rd, 2023. Please stand for the pledge. Thank you, everyone. Mr. Clerk, will you do a roll call for us, please?
Councilwoman Resnetti is absent. Councilwoman Riley,
Present.
Councilwoman Friedman is also absent. Councilman Burns.
Present.
Councilman Strawn,
Present.
Councilman Scanlon,
Present.
and President Scaringi is absent. So that's Scaringi, Friedman, Resnetti absent.
Okay, thank you. We are going to be going to the second item on our agenda, the Napa folks, because of weather and trying to get it set up. We're going to defer that conversation till Monday, February 6th. Are they going to try to come? Is Chuck still in here? They're going to try to come personally, but with the weather and things like that, we elected to push that to Monday, February 6th, for them to come down here. So we will go to our second item, and Captain Bidwell, I believe, is here for that. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Council President. I know it was on the agenda, but last time I also talked about the other pressing issues that were related to the Napa contract that we mentioned would have to go or require an executive session. Is that being scheduled as well for the in-depth discussion about the emails we received? Will that happen prior to them coming? Because there's a lot of information we need to know related to the contractual agreement.
The order, I guess, I'm not sure. I mean, I guess in some ways I'll probably defer to President Scaringi because of the agenda, but I would think that they should be in the same night when hopefully there's more of us here, whether we do an executive session before or not. I'm not sure. Is there precedent for that? I mean.
That's all right, but keep
But the
going.
executive session issues wouldn't be for the representatives from
No,
Napa.
not for, but it's regarding the same issue. So if
Yes.
we were to move to a vote, I don't want us to say we've checked off the Napa box and not fulfilled all of.
I'll
the
talk
concerns.
to President Scaringi and
Okay.
see if we can. I think we should do it on the same night, but I agree, it should definitely happen before there's an actual vote.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, Captain Bidwell, come join us. How you doing?
And everybody,
Good. Good evening. So we have 3 RLs. I guess we'll just kind of take them one at a time in order.
yeah, anyone?
Yeah, well, like if we can, let's just go right, unless there's a reason, we'll just go 23, 13, 14, and 15, if that's okay with you.
RL 2313 is a Homeland Security grant. It's for the Explosive K9 program. It is a grant for $15,000 and it's to assist with purchasing equipment, and training aids.
Okay, questions or comments for Captain Bidwell on RL 2313? Okay, tell us about 2314.
2314 is COPS Hiring Program grant. COPS Hiring Program for 2022, allowing funding for the city of Binghamton in the amount of $375,000 for the hiring of 3 new officers for a 3-year period.
Okay, questions or comments for Captain Bidwell on RL 2314? Okay, go on to 2315.
2315 is going to be an Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant Program for 2022. This is overtime funding for parks overtime in the amount of $31,937.
Okay, questions or comments for Captain Bidwell on RL 2315? Councilman Scanlon, go ahead.
Yeah, Captain, is this the Ranger program?
What's that?
It's a ranger program.
No, this is totally different. This is a grant we've been getting now for several years. All it is, it just funds overtime to put uniformed police officers in the park. Thank you. Yes, sir.
In the parks.
In the parks.
Okay, anything else for Captain Bidwell on this or any of the other RLs? Okay, thanks, Captain Bidwell.
Thank you.
Have a good night. Okay, welcome back, Megan. I'm assuming you're representing the mayor on RL 2324. Okay. Line up. Welcome back. Okay, tell us about RL 2324.
Okay, so this RL is to increase the salaries of both the city engineer and the superintendent of city streets. The funding for both increases is coming from unspent funds year to date due to vacancies. For the city engineer position, we're looking to increase that salary to reflect some additional responsibilities that are being shifted to that role. And we're also starting to think about a succession plan for our current city engineer and what it will take to recruit a PE once Mr. Lake eventually retires and that role becomes vacant. The salary for the superintendent of city streets is increasing to 56,000. That's listed as an increase, but in reality, the salary last year for that position paid $64,000. And it had increased in recent years as we added responsibility to that role. But when the superintendent left, we brought the salary back down to what it had been previously. So now we're looking at just a $4,000 increase for that superintendent of city streets position.
Councilwoman Riley, go ahead.
Thank you, Council President. Hello there.
Hello.
Again, welcome back.
Thank you.
So now when we're speaking of the city engineer's position and the increase, this is, can you clarify for us what type of position, how is this categorized in terms of our different ranking?
So this is Mr. Lake's position. He's a department head in the city. He's the city engineer.
Right, I mean, but that is a category, you know how we have the, of course, I can't think of the categories.
I
Management at
don't know.
I
Do
think
you
it's
know, Brian?
management at will.
Okay, he's management at will, okay. And now when we typically, for management at will or management positions, when the salaries are adjusted, typically it's based upon either someone moving in, moving out, and we've done some type of analysis looking at exemplars. So what is this based upon?
You know, I'm not sure exactly. I know that the reason for it is because we're moving some additional job duties to the position. Primarily, it's some of the job duties involving our pavement operation. Some of those duties that had been the responsibility of the superintendent of city streets, mostly record keeping and reimbursement of our federal dollars for that program. That's being moved under the engineering department and will fall to the city engineer. So this salary increase reflects the additional job duties.
Okay, so this category then does not have the restrictions as will one of the union not.
Unionized position.
Okay, that's what I wanted to clarify
Not a
with the
union position.
negotiation and
Yep.
then time and rank and all of that. Okay, so and I know our current the current city engineer will be retiring. So we're saying that the new responsibilities will be embedded into the posting and subsequent hires for this role.
That's my understanding, yes.
And we did not do a market analysis to compare what other municipalities pay for someone of this rank.
I don't know whether we did or didn't, to be honest. The Office of Personnel would probably be able to answer that.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Anything else for Megan on RL 2324? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
So if this is approved, would this then carry back to the start of the year? When does the,
No, I believe it's going forward.
okay, so once approved, then the salary will be put in place on that date and nothing in arrears.
228.
Okay. 2823. Okay, thank you. That concludes my question.
Okay, Dr. Burling, welcome. Up.
There.
Go ahead,
Mhm.
tell us about RL 2316.
All right, we're asking to have the historic preservation planner, neighborhood planner position added back into the budget. This is the entry level position. We have the historic preservation planner 2 position on the budget now, and we're going to be defunding that and moving the salary into the planner position 1 for our new hire. I don't know if you're aware that that Sean McGee has left the city, our historic preservation planner. So we're replacing him best that we can.
Okay. Any questions or comments for Dr. Burling on RL 2316? Councilwoman Riley, go ahead.
Thank you. Again, just for those that may have a question from our constituency, we're changing the designation because the level 1 position would not require as much experience and subsequently less duties associated with that title.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay,
And we're actually just adding that back into the budget. So we'll have both positions still in the budget, just one will be funded, not the other.
okay. Do we need both?
It doesn't hurt to have them there, but when the preservation planner 1 gets enough experience, they can then apply to be upgraded to the preservation planner 2.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying.
Yep, absolutely.
Anything else on RL 2316? Okay, thank you. Okay, will anybody be representing Mr. Slider on RL 2317? Or we can just wait. We'll go on. I know Sarah and Pat are both here. We'll wait, Pat. We'll go on to RL 2318. If he comes, we'll.
Hey, how is everyone?
Hello, hey Pat, how you doing?
So
Tell us about RL 2318.
RL 2318 is to extend the contract with Broome County Office for Aging for the meal service at the First Ward Senior Center. It's the same contract I think we've used the last 4 years. No changes or anything like that.
I think this is a great program. Any questions or comments for Pat on RL 2318? Okay, thanks, Pat.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Sarah.
Oh.
Hey, Sarah, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Okay, looks like you got 3 total. Tell us about RL 2319.
Okay. It's a resolution authorizing the sale of 180 to 186 Henry Street, 77 Pine Street, and 162 Henry Street to Carney Realty and Development Group. This was announced a number of months ago. I have the press release here. It was August 30th that Ken Carney's group will be moving forward with a project in the Stadium District, the Stadium Lofts project. This is just authorizing the sale of those vacant city-owned properties to him for the purposes of this development.
Questions or comments for Sarah on RL 2319? Councilwoman Riley, go ahead.
Yes, and please confirm, we're selling all of these vacant properties for a total of $1 to this.
Correct.
And is there any reason why?
It's mostly to incentivize the development to happen. This is a mixed income, partially affordable housing development that we would really like to see in this area. So the rationale is just to incentivize that economic and community development in the Stadium District. These were identified as priority parcels in the Stadium District Master Plan, I do believe.
Thank you.
Anything else on RL 2319? Okay, go on to RL 2320.
Okay, this is an ordinance to amend the 2023 budget to allocate ARPA dollars to support the siting of a multi-craft apprenticeship preparation program, workforce and training location. The amount is $275,000. Those are funds that will go directly to the acquisition of a property for the purposes of what is known as MAP. That's the Multi-Craft Apprenticeship Preparation Program acronym. So we announced this today. My office and the mayor's office have been in conversations with MAP for a number of months. They currently have 2 successful locations, one in Rochester, which is the original location, and the second location in Albany. They've received multiple statewide awards for funding for what they do, essentially looking at underemployed and unemployed communities and trying to provide a pathway into the middle class through entering the trades. It's a very, very in-demand field. I'm sure we've all heard contractors and other employers looking for these trades folks, and this gives an opportunity for specifically underrepresented people to enter the trades workforce. Has had great success in other communities. We're very excited to welcome them to Binghamton. The location is 89 Robinson Street, 4 Montgomery, which is 2 adjacent parcels on the east side of Binghamton.
Thank you. Any questions, or comments for Sarah on RL 2320? Councilwoman Riley, go ahead.
About that. You said the parcels are located where?
On the east side of Binghamton, right near the Court Jester East.
And so do we have addresses like we had in the parcel numbers as listed?
My apologies. So the city of Binghamton is not selling them these properties. This is they're buying from a private entity. So it didn't have to go through the same process that city-owned properties do. This price was negotiated between the nonprofit and the private entity, and we agreed to fund up to this amount, which is ultimately the amount they decided upon for the purchase.
Okay, so the nonprofit asked for our partnership in obtaining the property, and this price that we're paying is for the land itself or for the land and the development of the facility?
It's the land and the existing building. So the first class of participants in the MAP program will actually be doing the build out of the facility. It's essentially a vanilla box right now. It was primarily used for storage and warehousing. So it's really blank on the inside. It becomes a blank slate for them to be able to, 1, apply the skills they're learning in the program to actually doing that build out, and 2, make it into the home for this program that they would like it to be long term.
Okay, and then at the end, who will own the property?
MAP will, the nonprofit will.
So the city gains what from the investment?
So the city is gaining a workforce pipeline specifically into the trades. So if you are a participant in MAP's programming, you get direct entry into a trades apprentice program. We partnered with the Binghamton Oneonta Building Trades to develop that partnership. They're actually the ones who introduced us to MAP in the first place and said, we are really in need of people in these fields. We see this model working in other communities. How can we work to bring them to Binghamton? So we collectively identified a facility that worked for this nonprofit, and then we were able to provide this funding to site them in Binghamton. And we'll continue to work with them moving forward to develop the programming, get folks into that workforce pipeline, and ideally then graduate folks out into the trades long term.
Okay, so then do we have a contractual agreement to ensure that these are all City of Binghamton residents that are prioritized for the program?
That is a good question. I know we have an ARPA agreement with them, and I'm not sure if that is a provision of it, but I can look into that.
Please, because if we're allocating this much money, we need our
Certainly.
residents to be prioritized.
That's absolutely our intent. So I will see if there's any language around it, but that is the intent of the program.
Perfect. And then what trades are we highlighting?
So all of them.
Oh.
But today we talked a lot about pipe fitters, but it really depends on the exact trade you're talking about. So for instance, if you're looking at the apprenticeship classes that are created, something like, I don't want to misspeak, but I believe something like the electricians might take 30 folks in a class, while the pipe fitters may only take 8. So the real intent of the program is to match participants with the trade that they're most aligned with, both based on their interests, maybe their natural inclinations, and then also what's in need in the industry so that they can be actually placed into open slots in apprenticeships and then move into fields that are in high demand.
Okay, unfortunately, I was unable to watch the press conference. So a lot of this information is not in here, so
No, that's fine. And I have a copy of the press release if you would like that as well.
please.
Yeah.
And then if you have the exemplars, the cities specifically where the maps were that you used as the initial
Yes.
review, part of the initial review, and how we hope to proceed over the coming years with our residents being prioritized and then put into these great apprenticeships and given jobs.
Yeah.
So, and all of that is in the press release?
A lot of it's in here.
Oh, no. I think we got an email of
Yes.
it.
Okay, yes, a
But
lot of it's in there, but if you have any questions, we're happy to answer. MAP's website also has a lot of information on their Albany and Rochester location. And Kareem Berry, who is the executive director, also pointed people to Facebook today. He says that's their most active platform for sharing information on the program.
Perfect. We definitely support the unions, the trades. We think it's a great idea. I just want to be certain for this investment, we are prioritized and we know the numbers expected annually so we can monitor it and congratulate, support those Binghamton residents
Absolutely.
that are matriculating through these programs.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kareem did also provide some direct data to the news today. And I don't remember them off the top of my head, but we can get those for you. And they should hopefully also be in the coverage that should be on the news tonight.
Okay, but you understand why
Absolutely.
I'm feeling city council shouldn't have to wait on news. We should have the data in front of us, and so again, I love the idea. I just didn't have the detail nor the depth. So I appreciate you giving me what you have.
No problem. And if you have any specific questions, please feel free
I
to reach out.
will.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem.
Okay. Okay. 2322.
Yes. This is an ordinance to amend the 2023 budget to allocate American Rescue Plan Act funds to support the Broome County Arts Council in the amount of $10,000. So this is just to support Broome County Art Council's build out of their facility on State Street in downtown Binghamton. They recently moved and opened. They had been without a real home for about a year and a half. They were operating out of 5 South College Drive, which is the home of the Chamber of Commerce and the agency. Very excited to welcome them back to the city of Binghamton, but their moving in and final build out ended up costing a little more than they had budgeted for. So this is to support that final build out and free up some of those operational dollars so that they can work to provide the services that they provide to the city of Binghamton and Broome County.
Any questions, comments on RL 2320? 2322. Go ahead.
My question is not for 2322. If I can go back, if there are no other questions for 2322.
Yeah, go
Is
ahead.
that fine? Okay. So I just thought about, so remember, well, the properties on 2319 where the parcel listings were provided and they're being sold for $1. What's going to happen to the code violations and outstanding fines and fees for some of these problem areas that have been on the list here in the city?
That I do not know the answer to. I know they're currently city owned, so I am not sure what happens when we take ownership of a property, if those are extinguished or if they're passed on. Brian, do you know off the top of your head?
Chuck is right. Chris is right there. Chris Slater is there.
Violations are you talking about? What?
So there were some reports about Pine Street and Henry Street. I'm not sure if these are the exact addresses.
Councilwoman, if
Yeah.
I could, they're vacant lots, and at least on one of the properties, there was a blighted building that the city acquired and demolished. So there should be no standing code violations at this
correct.
point.
Okay.
This is the old banana factory, I believe, and then there's one
Yes.
building behind it. They're all empty lots now.
Okay.
The code violations would have been against the former owners to the extent they existed. So
And they would have taken care of that prior to city acquisition.
they either would have had to, well, if there were violations in their name, it would still be against them and their
Okay.
names. It doesn't, when the property gets sold, it doesn't go away. It's still their violation.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And then now I'm going back to 23-22. So please clarify. So we are allocating $10,000 to assist. Now we love the Broome Arts Council, don't get me wrong, but this $10,000 is to support furnishing the building.
More specifically, the build out. So for instance, they had to put in a new glass garage door, and I have some of the numbers here. That was $3,100. And that was to be in line with the COD requirements of the property, given that it's historic property. They had to put in fire rated glass doors to be in compliance with fire safety. That was $7,500. They had to put in, making sure I'm not doing anything that's already covered under something else. They had wiring systems for their Wi-Fi that went a little bit over their budget. I know it's not on this list, but they also had security system that right here. There's a $14,000 for the installation of a security system. So we are supporting some of those costs. We are certainly not supporting all of them. It's quite a large bill, but it's to essentially free up capital dollars that they can put them into operational dollars and host the programming that they host.
Okay, and again, as I've asked with all of the other projects, not that I'm asking this because we don't see the value of the Broome County Arts Council being in Binghamton, but what is our expected return on investment?
Quite honestly, we've already seen the return on investment just in the activity on State Street. Now, to be fair, I won't quantify that with a number, but we've seen increased vibrancy. We've seen, they've said that they've already done a number of, they did not give me the exact number, but a large number of sales, especially compared to the last year and a half where they weren't able to generate revenue. And just having their presence on State Street as an anchor institution for our Deco district, directly aligned with our priorities for that area, is very important. They've also been able to, in this move, hire a number of folks. I think 5. I don't think they're all full-time, but they have hired people to be able to staff their programs, staff the gallery. So it has had a direct economic development impact in that sense already.
Perfect, and that's what we need to know,
Absolutely.
just kind of support. Because again, if we look at what the ARPA money was purposed for, saying we're helping with outfitting, we can't go back to our constituents and talk about a glass garage door. So thank you for providing that info.
I don't know. And may I add, Ms. Close, isn't this also the place where we did a $250,000 loan to Rencan Holdings to renovate this building?
Correct.
And Holdings, there was a $250,000 loan to the BLDC to fund the rehab of this building. So
For
this
them.
only supports that loan that's already been approved by this body.
Got it.
I thought you would want to know that.
No, thank you, I do, of course. Renken Holdings. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Sarah.
Thank you.
Chris. Well. How you doing?
Good.
Welcome.
Everyone.
Okay,
Great.
tell us about RL 2317.
Okay. I don't know if you've had a chance to review, if you want me to explain it just in a nutshell from the beginning.
I
Yeah.
did look at it briefly. I guess my question would be, what's the biggest changes?
It's it's a little confusing. It was a lot of language to accomplish a very small task. Basically, the electrical code had previously read on page 13 that in order to obtain a license as a master electrician and acquire building permits in the city of Binghamton on behalf of a corporation, you would have to own at least 25% of the corporation. And we have seen a consolidation of businesses or mergers of businesses acquired by larger companies, so that stipulation is very difficult for some of the newer contractors in town. Namely, Hewin Electric, which has been contracted to do some work for the city of Binghamton at the Metro Center. They did all the wiring for that project. They've done, work elsewhere. They employ a lot of union electricians. They have a presence in Binghamton on Washington Street. They're an out-of-town company owned by a larger corporation that's a publicly traded corporation with 16 million shares. So they've met all the requirements of doing quality electrical work in the city of Binghamton, except they don't have anybody who owns 25% of the company. I guess this was initially set up to keep big companies from California and Dallas from coming into Binghamton and just hiring a ringer, so to speak, a licensed local guy, getting their permits, taking the job, and then taking all the funds outside the community. But that's not really what we're looking at today. This is more a case of, a company, a very large company that was purchased by a bigger holdings group, and they're looking to do work in the city of Binghamton, and they cannot provide somebody who owns 4 million shares of the stock. However, I think somebody who owns 4 million shares of that stock wouldn't be an electrician. They'd probably be a institutional investor. So
Right, on
it just
vacation,
makes sense
or
to
on
amend
vacation
the
somewhere.
charter to say we no longer require a corporation to have one of the chief holding the chief partners of the corporation be the person who gets the license and gets the permit. We've opened this up to say, if you have a local shop and the person acquiring the permit and the license is a local supervisor, and he has proof of full-time employment and they're verified as an employee and they provide supervision on the job, technical interpretation of the drawings and things like that, then it would be reasonable to allow that corporation to designate one of their supervisors as the person who will be obtaining the license, taking the test, getting the license, and getting permits on behalf of that corporation. So in a nutshell, we're not requiring 25% ownership in the company anymore.
But there's still a local element.
That's what we wrote into it in the green font. We've added language that said this doesn't apply to that one big company that comes in once and just hires a ringer or pays somebody a few $100 to get the permit for them. This is somebody who's establishing a presence here. They have an office, they have, equipment, they're using local journeymen to do the work, and the dollars are staying in the community.
Okay. Makes sense. Anything else for Chris on RL 2317? So everything else as far as permits and doing the work and stuff like that, that's the same.
Yeah,
It's
the
just
standards that we have not changed. We're still requiring their local supervisor to take the master electrician's exam. It's a nationally standardized exam offered through the International Code Council. It's held at Pearson View, which is a monitored testing center up in Vestal. And if they can show that they have the skills and the knowledge required to do quality electrical work, then we're fine with them doing it. We just no longer require them to own a majority or a large portion of the company that they work for.
anything else for Chris on RL 2317? Councilwoman Riley, go ahead.
Thank you. How are you, Chris?
Good.
Good, good. So I see all the revisions that are in here that talk about the local supervisor, but you only ask for pay stubs or a W-2 without saying how many specifically. So someone could be hired for a month or two, give
Yeah.
you what you need and be the local ringer using your terminology.
Yeah, yeah. They have actually gone through a couple different master electricians at this point. So they came in and they hired a local individual who owned a business and went to go work for them. And they said, this is great. You're already a master electrician. We're going to put you on our payroll, which he, proved that he was not just being bought for a one-time job, that he actually did work for them. But when when he decided to retire, because he was up there in years, they had two of their other senior electricians sit for the exam and become licensed. So these guys who currently hold the license have been working for them for years and are still working for them.
But that's in that one instance, but we're trying to widen
yeah.
or broaden the opportunities for others. But what's to prevent someone else from then hiring a local for the one project they're bidding for the city?
Yeah, it's a tough one, Angela. If you can think of something that, we went through this with the Board of Electrical Examiners. We went through this with Corporation Counsel. We went through it with HR. trying to see how far we can reach, how much we can ask for before we start invading somebody's, right to privacy. And that was the answer we came back with, is that they can show pay stubs or W-2 showing that they're a full-time verified employee with that company.
So is it in our best interest to not define how many pay stubs? Can we quantify a number that would make us feel comfortable knowing they're a long-term employee? Oh,
W-2s help because usually you don't get that unless you're on
Right.
payroll for the last
from the
year.
last year, but what if they don't have it? It says, or, yes.
I think what we're trying to prevent is somebody who's just given $500 cash or a check and saying, here, can you go get a permit for me? So by putting them
In
on
the
their
past, when
payroll
they've
and
done
paying,
that, they've not even put them on the payroll. They just basically gave them cash.
yeah, just
Go
give
buy
them
us a permit.
cash. So by putting them
for a
on their
permit.
payroll and incurring payroll expenses, that's taken a little bit more seriously than somebody who's just paid off to get a permit for an out-of-town company. I mean, if you want to,
No, I'm asking.
if you want to nix the pay stubs and say,
The only council
Yeah.
member here, but if we're doing all of this to prevent fraudulent activities, I hate to say fraudulent,
Yeah.
but someone being, what was your term again?
got to fly by night,
fly by night.
sure.
Then are we doing our due diligence by just? Thank
I
you.
think the pay stubs and W-2 are only part of it. They also have to establish a local shop, which means that they have to buy a storefront. There's other steps that they have to go through, not just have an individual with pay
Yeah.
stubs. There's multiple levels to get there. Yes. Okay.
Thank you for clarifying that. And who would be responsible for reviewing the pay stubs and all of the necessary requirements?
The Board of Electrical Examiners reviews applications for licensing. We meet once a month. And that's that's a group of people who are at different levels of involvement in the industry. And so if there's something, an application of this nature that comes across the desk, then everybody has the opportunity to weigh in on it and make sure that the requirements have been met. Request more information if it's not clear.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
We're good?
Thanks for coming in.
Okay,
Appreciate it. Hello, Mr. Crum. How you doing?
Good evening.
Okay.
Here pinch hitting for our business manager who had a prior commitment on the fourth Monday. So
Okay. Go
first
ahead. Tell us about 2323.
2323 is an RL to modify permanent ordinance 22-194, copy of which I emailed to you Friday evening with a revised front page of the RL. In terms of the transition of the capital funds from the 2022 budget into the new enterprise fund format and the creation of a reserve, the money for the asset management plan, $300,000, went into the wrong pot on paper, and it wasn't caught until the board found out about it kind of after the fact. So we're here to ask that to be undone and put into the reserve. I just want to point out in 2021, just for some background of why we need an asset management plan, why there's wear and tear on the equipment of the joint sewage treatment plant. The total wastewater flow into the plant was 6,672,580,000 gallons. At 8.345 pounds per gallon per wastewater, that's 55.645 billion pounds, or 27.84 million tons of wear and tear that goes through in the course of a year. 2021 was a little wetter than average, so the flow is a little higher. And that works out to be about 152.45 million pounds, or 76,225 tons per day going through the facility and its various processes and equipment. So there's definitely wear and tear at that rate of consumption. part of our job under the state regulation, part 750-2.8 A2 of the Environmental Conservation 6 NYCRR, is to have a proper infrastructure maintenance plan and asset management program. We're in the process of following this. It's laid out in a December 2021 guide that the DEC put out for wastewater treatment plants. It's about a 70-page booklet. There's 7 steps to it. The first is an asset inventory, which the board has an active RFP out, where we're looking to have an asset inventory and appraisal done by a professional service provider. That will give a replacement cost and a fair market value. The second part of that is a condition assessment, and that's what I foresee as one board member. The bulk of this money that we're talking about putting into the reserve being used for, rather than going into a different project, so that we have a comprehensive condition assessment of all the equipment. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of different systems and equipment, and have it scored so that we know where it is on the totem pole. Keep in mind that, for example, with the restoration and rehabilitation that started in 2016, equipment that was installed in 2017, which was the first full year of the restoration and rehabilitation, now has been in service at the plant 5 full years, and even more so that it's getting that wear and tear. And we have to keep an eye on it. We have to do it systematically. And it's not, in my view, it's not right to the ratepayers or the owners, the municipalities, the city, and the village, to have it be one of these, put your thumb up and see which way the wind's blowing, but have some very well systematized and documented asset scoring system and condition assessment. And that will lead us then to ranking under the level of service profile and scoring by criticality of function, and that can feed the capital improvement plans over time. So that's what the structure of all this is. And in terms of getting the work done as efficiently and effectively, and by some experienced people that we don't necessarily have working for us through the board or through the plant, because that's operators, we're going to need to enter into some outside professional services agreements, after a proper request for proposal process that's publicly advertised and scored according to the criteria and the RFP. So that's what 2323 is about. And it seems like the $300,000, if that were to go back out to something else, instead of being kept available for the asset management plan, would really set this effort back. So I'm here on behalf of the board asking that this request for legislation be approved with respect to the $300,000, rather than having it go to a different purpose, that it goes into the capital reserve fund for the asset management plan.
Any questions or comments from Mr. Crum on RL 2323? Okay, tell us about RL 2325 and 26. Looks like
25
they're
and
similar.
26 relate to modifying the budget with respect to FEMA recoveries. It's hard to believe that still, more than 11 years after the 2011 flood, we're still chasing money, but we are. And I'm hoping that everybody received the end of year, which is actually as of January 5th report that was sent out to everybody through the city clerk. And if you didn't receive it, we'll make sure you get it, just so you see where we're at. We're on track when all is said and done to recover for the owners and the board's costs as well, $53.976 million of FEMA and New York State money.
Mr. Crum, can you hold on for 1 second? We technically do not have a quorum at this moment, so
Okay.
You cannot act, so nothing can be signed out. You can still allow. him to
So he can
present.
speak. Okay,
He can
so
speak.
keep speaking. Okay,
Okay.
just wanted to make sure.
It's being recorded so other people can listen to it, right? So, is that right? Okay. So that's, that's all part of this recovery process, and we're making progress. The first 23-25 pertains to the CEPT, chemically enhanced primary treatment system. And the budget modifications that are presented in this RL, which are annotated onto the copy of the check. And also there's a chart, would have $132,807.53 coming back to the city. And there's modifications to the revenue and to the expense lines as shown. And the second one, which is 23-26, is probably more interesting because it's got more decimal places. It's a $1.2 million recovery. This is with respect to the BAF. And also there's a final payment for the primary treatment in solids that are part of that. And I note you now have your fourth member back. So the city's share of this particular payment would be $588,417.05. The revenue and expense allocations are shown in the chart on the second page. The board receives reimbursement of $155,891.68 for its direct administrative costs pursuing this project worksheet. And the other money goes to the village in their 45.2% share. The city share 54.8%. Are there any questions on either of these FEMA RLs or the FEMA recoveries general?
Anything else for Mr. Crum on any of these RLs for the plant? Okay, thank you, Mr.
Thank
Crum.
you very much.
Appreciate it. Okay, Councilwoman Friedman is not here. How should we table the RL 23-27 discussion till next time? Should we? Councilman Scanlon, go ahead.
I'm not sure. I think we can talk about it without her here. That's my opinion. What everybody else thinks, it's fine with.
Okay, does anybody? Go ahead, Councilman Burns. Where's it? Don't leave though, because then we can't do anything.
Because we are looking at the percentage of council members here and recognizing that the author, well, she did not author this alone, but has fallen ill, I would like to postpone it so we can ensure that we have the necessary support to proceed. We can discuss it, but again, I think it needs to be brought back when we have a majority of council in the building.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. So I won't, in the sense, I won't hand out this sheet. We could have a brief discussion if you want to.
Yeah, I'd like to
since
say
it's-
something,
yeah.
please.
Go ahead, Councilman Scanlon.
So I'd like to address the two Democrats in the room. I saw the press conference from Channel 34, and it said something to the effect that that the Democrats wanted something beyond the civil rights component of the investigation done by the Attorney General. So my first question is how do you know the Attorney General is only investigating the civil rights segment of it? First, if you could answer that for me, one of the two Democrats in the room, I'm sure somebody has an answer for me. Well, that's the first question. I probably have questions after that. So if somebody could answer that for me, it'd be great. Thank you.
It's my understanding that based on conversations that I was in with the Attorney General's office, that the civil rights folks would be the ones that would take this up, and that they would not give an opinion on whether or not the officer in question had broken the law, the Eric Gardner anti-choke law. Now, if everybody agrees that the Attorney General should be is a higher power than what we have suggested, and you want to wait until we hear from the Attorney General, then I think it would be appropriate for, like, if this was the district attorney's office and the one of the ADAs had a personal relationship with the person they were investigating, they would recuse themselves. So if we say that we're going to rely on the Attorney General, I then think it would be great if the police chief would then recuse the Binghamton Police Department on making an opinion, and we would wait for the Attorney General.
I'm going to go ahead and speak as well. So anyone that has dealt with the Attorney General, and this is not the first time there has been discussion of the Attorney General's office intervening in city of Binghamton because of things that are going on and the possible connections through the leadership that are either elected and hired to run and govern this city, correct? Right? Some things that have happened. So I say this, anyone that has worked with the Attorney General, and all of you have the opportunity to call, make a request, set up a meeting with the new civil rights agency that has been brought down because of some of the changes that have occurred over time, you will know that there are various divisions within that office. What we do know is that when the Attorney General intervenes, if they choose to do so, the entire investigation becomes locked. It becomes mute. It is not a transparent process. There are no updates. They cannot tell you where they are in the investigation. What it is prudent for us to do as council members that are beholden or representing a whole subset of the city is give the best evidence, the best amount of not the best amount, but be as forthcoming as we can with the information we have, so that people know that this will not happen. This should not happen in this city, as I stated in the press conference. Now, again, the civil rights portion is what has been shared. But as I mentioned, there are several divisions within the Attorney General's office. The primary issue, the point is that the city of Binghamton has yet to say, as a whole, by any of our appointed leaders, this should not have happened. And this will not happen to your children or to you ever. And what we need to do is let our neighbors and constituents know that we are actively involved and will not tolerate such in this city. And none of you have said that. None of you have responded that that was a problem and that it evoked, watching the video, again, that has been shared locally and globally, that it evoked a response. Now, it may not have shaken you like it shook me, because things like that happen to people that look like me more so than some of you. But the point is, our people, our residents, our constituents need to know that we're actively doing something, and saying we're sitting by waiting, not that I'm minimizing the effect or the impact of the Attorney General's office, But we can do something also. And we cannot allow an entity to investigate themselves. And this is not the first time that it has happened in the city. There have been other instances where we've hired external counsel, we've hired external agencies to investigate. It's been done before. So why not consider it here so that we again protect the interest and the value, the perception, we want to help our residents feel secure. And this is one step in the right direction.
Councilman Riley, so Councilman Burns mentioned a meeting. Were you in that meeting with the Attorney General, with Councilman Burns?
Which meeting was that? I've had several meetings with the Attorney General. I've had several meetings with the Human Rights Commission. I've been on the phone every day or in a meeting since this happened.
Okay, all right. So you may have been at a meeting with Councilman Burns, you may not have, whatever. Right?
Correct.
Okay.
Because it is my due diligence to find facts and find what we need to do as residents, as elected representatives to ensure that that will not happen. Have you made any calls to find out what we need to do?
I have not, but let me answer what you've already asked me before. So I've seen the videos, maybe you've seen more videos than I have. That's possible. But the videos I've seen, I can't tell, and I don't want to get into the weeds here, but I can't tell if the officer's on the kid's neck or not. I can't say yes, he is, or yes, he is not. And I don't know how anybody can based on one video they see, or two videos or three videos. I'm confident the city of Binghamton will get this right, but I certainly welcome the Attorney General looking into this too. And don't think for a second the Attorney General is going to look at this as a civil rights violation alone, because if they see something else, it goes to another division. So the best person in the world looking at this to me is the Attorney General. So I will not support hiring somebody, another law firm outside to look at it until the Attorney General's done, and I may not do it then, because they will do their due diligence. I have 100% trust in them to do it right and come down with the right decision. So I will not support this or else hire an outside firm to look into this more. I think it's just, who's better to look at than the Attorney General? No one.
Now, listen, I agree with you about the Attorney General. In fact, I mean, the office, again, I support wholeheartedly. Do you know that this is moving forward? Do you know
Didn't they just announce
that they're investigating, or that they requested documents to determine?
Well, right, but they just started the process. That's my understanding.
I'm not going to speak for the mayor here, but I assume the mayor's waiting to see if there's another video that he hasn't seen, that somebody maybe has, maybe doesn't have. So I assume that's why there's no determination yet. I'm not going to speak for the mayor, but I'm assuming that's what's going on there. And maybe Brian has more information. I don't know.
So maybe that's the question we need to ask before we say we're adamantly supporting or not supporting.
I don't need to ask the mayor that. I'm not going to support another outside firm investigating this incident while the Attorney General's involved, because there's no better set of eyes to look at this thing to me than the Attorney General. So why would I entertain hiring somebody else to look at this? It makes zero sense to me.
My concern is preempting the Attorney General. What would this firm have authority? I mean, I don't understand that part of it. I'm not saying that it feels like I think the idea of it is not a bad one, but I think the Attorney General should fill that role at least until we determine something else. So how would another party have any authority over and above the Attorney General of the state of New York? I don't know if that's.
I don't know that, Brian, but I don't think they do.
And how would we do this without, talking to obviously, corporate counsel's office and things like that? I don't know. Have they been spoken to before we were, because I mean, obviously this is a big issue for the city as a whole.
Absolutely.
Of course. And
so we would lean on the processes that were evoked or invoked in 2015. How was that independent investigation handled? So again, I don't have that information, but that's why we bring legislation to discuss and then determine as a body how to best represent the needs of the community. And what is here in the document says that they can exist, they can the two investigations can proceed at the same time. Again, one is beholden to the council to make sure it is a transparent process and any data found can then be shared with the AG. So it's not a one if or, it's a one and let's get it done.
Right, but I don't know how they could, any other firm could have more resources than the Attorney General's office of the state.
I can't imagine they do, but let's move this forward. What if we did, what if, let's assume we hired an outside firm to look at this, the Attorney General's looking at it. What if they come back with two different opinions? Where are we then? What do we do then? We got two different varied opinions?
I don't
What,
think
we
we
hire
should-
another firm and another firm, another firm?
No, I don't think we should we can't sit here and hypothetically guess what may happen.
Again, Councilor Riley, with all due respect, the Attorney General's looking at it. I'm 100% behind that. I welcome that. I don't want anybody else looking at it when they're looking at it. It's my opinion. Thank you.
Again, this is tabled until,
I gave the sign-in sheet back to clerk.
Yeah, and then, in 2 weeks, I think we'll know more.
Well, I would agree with that in the sense that I'd like to at
We'll know-
least
we'll
see
know
some,
whether or not. Well.
the
we might be able
scope,
to
I
get
guess
an
the
answer
scope of
from-
it, the
from-
scope of it.
From
could
the
be a
office,
little
whether or
bit
not they're determining whether or
To
not the
proceed.
officer broke that law or not, the anti-choke law, as opposed to the civil rights office only determining something about the civil rights being violated. In 2 weeks, we should have that answer. What exactly they're looking at.
Okay, I agree. Fair enough.
Thank you.
Okay. Councilwoman Riley, go ahead.
yes, thank you again. So, I mean, since Councilman Scanlon asked questions of me, I do have a question for you. What do you think the city's, in terms of your position as a city councilman, what do you think our next steps should be as we support the Attorney General?
I think we're in a holding pattern as a city. Once the Attorney General's involved, I think we have to wait for them to make a determination before we can do anything. And I don't know the legal ramifications of that, but I think we probably again in a holding pattern, because what should we do now? What do you want to do now? What's your recommendation for the city to do now when the Attorney General is investigating this?
No, that was my question for you.
I think we're in a holding pattern. I don't know. I don't have any idea what we should do. What I'm gonna ask you, what do you think we should do?
So I'm supposed to say, that's what I'm gonna ask you. So we're gonna go back and forth.
I don't have any answer of what we should do now. So again, I would ask you, do you have an idea of what we should do
Well,
from here?
and that's why we brought it to council, because again, we sat through very, very interesting testimony, right? We were asked to act. So how did you feel? What should we do? That's for the body. And again, since everybody's not here.
I'm glad you brought this up, because last Wednesday's business meeting was a complete disaster to me. Now, I have no problem people talking. I sat here before everybody else on city council until 11:30 one night during public comment, which Joe Burnsback spoke at. It's about a sanctuary city. There had to be 200 people in the audience speaking. I have no problem listening to public comment. But the decorum in the chambers, we cannot allow as a city council, someone to quote, take over our meeting. We can't allow disruptions where we can't get the business done. It shouldn't have happened. It's not going to happen again. So I don't know. I would ask you, did you like the quorum of last Wednesday's business meeting?
Again, I think you're compounding the issue. What I asked
You brought it up.
was that we heard testimony, not only from people that were affected, but from the mother and the sister. Separate from whatever else happened, I'm asking you about how we heard the impact of what transpired on January 1 has impacted families. Now, the other part is for a later discussion because it's not directly related to this legislation. What is being asked of us as elected leaders is to do something.
We have to wait until the Attorney General's done. I don't know. I don't know how many
Okay,
times I can
So
say
then
it to
we're,
you.
so then we're back.
What do you want to
and
do
we're
now? What do you
done.
want to do?
No, but you tossed it back to me, Tom.
What do you
So
want to do now? What do you want to do now? While we're waiting? Do you have an idea what we should
I
do
would
as a
like us
city?
to say that it won't be tolerated in this city.
What? We don't know we don't know there was any violation, any crime here, anything by the police department. What do you, it won't be tolerated? What won't be
The
tolerated?
video that was on the
What won't
news,
be
the
tolerated though?
video that was on the news, and we don't have to do this here because it is being televised, but the video that was on the news and tweeted and posted several times clearly outline or showed someone on the ground already in handcuffs with an officer on them. Now, I will not say where they were because again, as I said in my post on social media, because I did make a statement that we have people that are experts at analyzing tapes, footage, what have you, that may not be within this Broome County area, which is why we need to do more. But what I said was that because we saw that, and because it evoked a response in the community, in the family we saw here, we need to say something. Period.
That's up to the mayor. It's not up to city council. To me, it's up to the mayor. The mayor leads the city.
You can't speak for yourself and your constituents.
I don't know what happened, Angela. I told you. I don't know what
Okay,
happened.
Then
I don't know what
We
happened.
don't agree.
And neither do you. Neither
We
do
don't
you.
agree.
You think you know what happened, but you don't.
We don't agree.
Okay, wait, that's fine, but you think you know what happened, but you don't. I don't know what happened either. So
Okay. Let's pick this discussion up in 2 weeks. When hopefully all of our members are here, including Council Member Friedman, who brought this forward. We will move on to RL 2321, Mr. Clerk.
So we have another correction of the 2023 tax rolls for various properties. There's a lot in here. They're from the county. Most of these are clerical errors, that sort of thing. These are pretty standard from the county. We get them every few months. Any questions?
Okay. Pending legislation is virtually the whole agenda from the prior meeting. Anything else? We still have, I believe, 2 public hearings, Mr. Clerk. We got one of them before we lost the quorum. Is that correct?
Correct, but we also set another one, so I believe we have 3 public hearings, and there's 29 pieces of legislation here on your pending legislation. However, one of them is the RL for the agreement with Napa. That's sounds like it's being pulled, and we'll consider that in 2 weeks at another work session. So really we have 28 on the pending legislation, and then the 2 that were expedited tonight.
Is all the pending legislation from last, was that all expedited, or are there some that were not expedited?
No, about half of it's from Wednesday's meeting, and the other half is from the work session 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
So obviously they were just not considered, so their first reading legislation.
Okay.
Right? Is that correct? Okay.
I'll have to talk to Corp Council, but I'm not sure if they're second read legislation, if we never actually got to them.
Because they may never been read in the first place, is what you're saying?
Correct.
That's a good question. I don't know the answer off the top of my head. We've never had to cross that bridge before.
Okay. I'm hoping for, I'm not sure what's going to happen. I'm hoping for another robust discussion, but we do need to have order and decorum of the meeting. Hopefully that happens. I don't know if anybody's listening. I hope that, like Councilman Scanlon said, we'll be here all night, but the public comment should address, hopefully addresses us as city council members. And if it does, then that'll be great. But we do need to get to our agenda and the city's business as well. So hopefully that happens. Anything else for good of the order? A motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to join the meeting.
Second.
Okay, we're adjourned.